Hey, everybody out there. Welcome to another edition of Alley Talk. I am your host, Kyle Fisher. Of course, you are here live with us for the only show where the host is late for the damn thing. I kept everybody waiting, not only in the comments, but my own co-host, Alec Kostival, who returns for another great episode. The episodes always pop off when my man Alec is in the studio. And just like you all, he had to wait outside the studio waiting for my slow ass. So, Alex, I know you're familiar with our days working at GameStop, how I used to always be late. Molino, you used to wait for me getting off of GameStop to go out to the bars. So a lot of you guys are used to me being late. But Alex not used to it. So his first experience with Fisher being late, running on Fisher time, as we like to call it.
Listen, I understand being fashionably late, but it's nice if you could at least send a text.
I should have jumped in those comments, but I was too busy getting my energy ready to go, if you will. Hold on one second.
You were too excited.
Getting my water ready to go.
Too much Phillies news.
Too much Phillies news, exactly. The excitement is at an all-time high. For our topics today, we are going to get into the fact that the Phillies somehow managed to avoid arbitration with everybody on their roster who was eligible for arbitration. A pretty impressive run, not always the case for teams, especially when you have a lot of guys. I think they were pushing double digits. We're also going to get into a quick hitter before the episode is over to check in on the Hall of Fame voting, see how guys like Bobby Abreu, Jimmy Rollins, and Chase Utley are faring in the latest and greatest calculations on the votes that have been submitted so far. But there's no other place to start on a Philly-specific show than the news in the last few days that the Phillies have a meeting on the books Monday over Zoom with one Bo Bichette. Alec, initial thoughts before we dive into all the reporting and giving the people their props for doing the great reporting on the ground.
Honestly, 4 days ago, I was like, okay, maybe the Phillies have like a 5% chance of signing Bo Bichette, maybe 10. But now I've brought back the old DEFCON systems from like War Games and other 80s notable nuclear war movies. And I'm at like a DEFCON 3. There's been a lot of quotes out there, and we're going to go through them that really kind of point all signs to the Phillies on this one, which I still don't believe so much myself. It's just kind of shocking that it's actually seems like it could be happening.
Yeah, a little surprising to see how quickly it's moving. You're seeing some reports that it's the first time they've done something. You're seeing reports that it's the second time they would be meeting. There's reports that people in the front office said, yeah, you know, the way that the market has gone on, a lot of the top tier free agents were willing to check in again, but they still put it as a low percentage. And then there's reporters out there who are assuming that the deal is already done and Monday's just a formality and that he will be walking into spring training donning the Phillies red. Alec, before we, again, dive into the exact quotes, your initial thoughts, what would it mean for this Phillies team if they were to bring it without all the other moves, because there are going to be dominoes that are impacted across the roster if they do pull this off. But what is the impact if a guy with the youth and postseason experience and overall talent of Bo Bichette were to join this already star-studded roster?
Is it an overstatement to say that the Phillies and Dodgers are neck in the NL? I don't think so.
Wouldn't surprise me.
If they were to get Bichette, you've got money rosters with stars up and down. The Phillies also bring in some youth this year with Justin Crawford and Andrew Painter, presumably. But Bo Bichette probably playing like second base, if I were to guess. That's just a professional hitter you're adding to the lineup. He's not like a huge power guy. He's maxed out, I think, at 29 home runs or so. But it's like a 20 home run guy who hits 300. And if you've got a middle infield of two guys hitting 300 for the entire season, this move would lengthen the Phillies lineup like no other move during this era has.
Yeah, I mean, people want to talk about it right now, the way the roster is currently constructed, who would bat cleanup. Well, this is a guy who batted cleanup and hit a 3-run homer that looked like it was going to be the go-ahead homer in the World Series against those feared Dodgers. So
He hit
I know that he's
348
not
in the World Series.
Exactly. I think he hit like 381 in the second half of the season. The guy was a monster last year, and it was a big rebound from what felt like a very down season the year before.
Massive down season in 24. It was ugly for Bo Bichette. It almost looked like, whoa, is this guy kind of like collapsing? But it was a couple injuries, I think, that season for him. Well, only hitting 225 and OPS under 600, only in 81 games. But the way he rebounded in 2025 by matching his career high batting average in any season, and the most in a season that he had at least 500 plate appearances. There's plenty of reasons to be excited to add a guy to the line like this.
Not only that, Alex, so you just talked about he's an average guy. He's been there, done that. He's come up in the clutch, so would fit anywhere in the middle of that Phillies lineup. You mentioned it, professional hitter. The guy led the American League in hits 2 seasons in a row, and he came damn close to the lead this past season with 181 hits, adding him to the middle of the order, or the top half of the order, with another guy that has also led the league in hits twice in Trey Turner. I mean, you're talking about consistency. You're talking about we're not talking about true 3 outcomes anymore. And when you add in the high on base percentage for both Bryce Harper and Kyle Schwarber, a guy like that hitting behind them and taking the pressure off of newcomer Adolis Garcia or whoever ends up being a catcher, or the young guy in Justin Crawford, the length in that lineup is explosive when you talk about those guys, not even considering the other moves they'll have to make, which the 4 guys we just mentioned would not be impacted by.
Yeah, I don't know where would you put him in the lineup. If you put him at 2, or if you put him at 3, or you put him 4. Obviously, Trey Turner remains your 1. If you're fine with stacking 2 righties and 2 lefties, you can put him at 2. But if you want to shuffle things around with the lefty-righty matchup, you go either 3 or 4. I think he can hit any of those positions. It wouldn't be traditional if he's hitting, in the 4 hole. Maybe if Harper's fine with hitting 2, you go Turner, Harper, Bichette, Schwarber. That might be your most optimized top 4. That's a hell of a top 4. Like, any pitching to get through. Like, you're telling me the 2 top guys got a 30% chance of getting a hit. The has got a 40% chance of getting on base. And oh, by the way, the guy 3rd is, Bryce Harper. Shuffle it. These are 4 excellent hitters. And with a big bopper like Schwarber, you don't even need to worry what a guy like Adolis Garcia does in this lineup. You don't even need to worry about what kind of season Justin Crawford has in center field outside of developing. If this move happens, I think it's great for the Phillies. And it's obvious to say it's great. I think it's tremendous for the Phillies.
So just some of the I'm going to hit on 2, and then I'll let you go through the rest, because you did the compiling of the quotes from some of the reporters. So from Nightingale, the Phillies' interest potentially signing Bichette came about after the holidays, when Bichette expressed a desire in playing for them, particularly after the hiring last week of Don Mattingly as their bench coach. This is not part of the quote, but there has been numerous reports that Bichette and Mattingly have a very strong relationship. We all know how well respected Mattingly is, so to have Bichette in that hold him in such a high regard that he's going back to a team where there's not really a place for him at the moment. And I'm sure that the team told him and his representatives, look, we're going to have to get creative, but if we have a real shot at getting you, we'll do what we need to do. What are some of the other reports that you saw, Alec, out there? Because you did the legwork for us on this one.
Oh, some of the more salacious and tantalizing ones. This one's going to be from Bob Klappich of the New York Star Leisure. Bo Bichette is almost certainly headed to the Phillies, where Don Mattingly, his former bench coach in Toronto, will assume that same role at the other end of the Jersey Turnpike. Almost certainly is strong. Again, these are not national baseball writers. Definitely some that have more good standing than just your average Joe Schmo. You have Bill Madden from the New York Daily News, a columnist there. He says on Twitter, my sources are telling me the Phillies are now the favorites to sign Bo Bichette. Started once they signed Don Mattingly, Bo's guy, as bench coach. There's strong mutual interest that could result in a deal when they next meet. Both of those, like, I never see anything from any sort of actual verified journalist with that much certainty in their writing, whether it is just a post on Twitter or an actual column. That's really, really solid. Like, I almost want to move to DEFCON 2 on this, but I'm still at a 3. Until I hear something from one of the Philly guys, I'm talking keep your eye on Jim Salisbury, because Salisbury, he somehow has the most sources in all of Philly's writing. Of course he does, because he's been there the longest. Of course, he's the guy, once he says something, you listen. So that's like the one shoe that I'm waiting to drop to really go to, oh, this is happening. But the way that talking about this and people in baseball in general, it's just feels closer than anybody ever expected it would be, especially a week ago.
And look, I know that there's plenty of Phillies fans out there who are going to say equivocally false things about Dave Dombrowski's time in the front office with Philadelphia about, oh, he's got to take the bigger swings. Like, we all know he spent a lot of money not only extending Wheeler, but extending Wheeler again. The JT deal, I know that he was comfortable with that. I know he wasn't here when it was signed, but the Trey Turner deal, he's spent money on Castellanos and Schwarber again.
The Aaron Nola extension, JT Realmuto extension. The money's being spent. It's just not that you're getting new guys, because these
the problem was they were already in the
players,
roster, right?
You got to re-sign them.
Exactly. So there's been a lot of people might think that he's underachieved here, which is ridiculous because you already knew those names. This is going to be a guy that's outside the organization, going to be a huge swing for them. And Dombrowski's reputation prior to coming to Philly, and across the league it still holds, is that he's a guy where if he recognizes a talent that he wants, he goes and gets it, and he'll figure the rest out later. And this could be the white whale that both fans and he want to get into this locker room. Now, there are going to be some ripple effects. We talked about he's been a shortstop his entire career. They have a shortstop. If he moves off of shortstop to second or third base, well, they have a second baseman and a third baseman. Oh, yeah, they also, we just talked about it, spent a crap ton of money, and any dollar that they give to Bichette, I think past $3 million, the way their roster is currently constructed, will be taxed at 110%. So even if it's 30 a year, it's 63 coming out of the owner's pocket. Now, I'm the first one to say that I don't care about the money because it's not mine, but somebody has to. So, Alec, give us a little bit on what the dominoes are, and then we can really dive into the numbers on that. But what are the dominoes if the Phillies pull off this sudden movement to go get Bo Bichette?
So I just want to mention one thing from like the salary point standpoint. Obviously, the Phillies aren't going to save much, if any, money with the whole Castellanos thing going on. But next year, that money's gone. Same with Taijuan Walker's money. You're talking about $38 million a year or $37 million a year. You don't need to worry about. Plus, those penalties are going to offset next year. You have to bite the bullet this one season. But my gosh, are you talking about adding a professional hitter to this lineup and making the Phillies one of the scariest, most balanced teams in all of baseball? And the dominoes that are going to have to fall here is that the Phillies have too many players on the infield then. Now, you are going to have to move either Alec Bohm, which everyone has talked about and should be able to save a little bit of money. He's going to make $10.2 million that we found at an arbitration. Or you maybe look to trade Bryson Stott, whichever you trade, you're going to have to figure out the same arithmetic for next year, the same calculus, to figure out where you're putting Aiden Miller. Because Aiden Miller, start of the season, he's going to be regarded as one of the top 20, 15, maybe even crack the top 10 on some prospect lists in all of baseball. He's the real deal. And he is going to be a major league contributor. And he's adjusted at every level he's played at. You got to figure that out for 2027 and beyond. So there's a lot to figure out here. But if this signing does happen, there are going to be other moves that the Phillies desperately need to make.
Yeah, man. And obviously, if you're going to potentially have to move one of these other guys, you just talked about Bohm in the last year of his contract. Stott has one additional year after this season of arbitration, and then he becomes a free agent. So depending on who you move, you may have to make decisions on Miller or other potential free agents and trades a little bit sooner, and you're still putting people out of position. Not saying they can't do it, but you're putting people out of position, which the least amount you can do that, the better, I think. Real quick, hopping over to the comments, we got this one. I'm only bringing it up, not because I'm entertaining it, Alec, but because this is something that I thought they should have tried with Alec Bohm a few years ago. Like when he had that breakout 2020 season, like, hey, let's put that guy in left field and let him figure it out. Because
have you seen Alec
at the
Bohm
time, especially,
run?
he was really bad. Yeah, but I watched Pat Burrell out there forever. I'm okay with it. Like,
yes, but you also watched Rhys Hoskins.
Correct. That was a little. Look, I'm a little more confident in. Maybe it's the hair, but I'm a little more confident in Bohm moving out there than I ever was.
It honestly is the hair. I swear
it has to, because he looks like a gazelle out there running with the hair flowing behind him. When you're Rhys, you're just a big
like he should have Chariots of Fire playing in back of him as he's slowly running, slow-mo effect going, and the hair bouncing and everything. But then the ball falls 20 feet to his left. So, but and then we didn't mention the biggest domino that obviously would fall is probably no JT Realmuto on the Phillies.
Probably not. Probably no JT. And that is a bigger deal just beyond the lineup.
Yeah, it's a big impact because of how much impact he has on the pitching, especially the starting pitching. And that is a strength for the Phillies, but can't remain a strength without JT. I think that's going to be a big question mark. But to think of one thing in favorable of that is Marchand's been watching what JT has been doing for years. Stubbs has been watching what JT does with these pitchers for years. If anything, you got guys that know. So it shouldn't be that hard if they need to bring in, say, a Caratini, or if they get like a Ryan Jeffers in a trade with Minnesota. It's not as hard to imagine that being able to work out okay because he has a support staff of Rafael Marchand and Garrett Stubbs that he can go to and kind of figure out, okay, hey, what's this guy? How's he go? His report, what is he like in this? Where should I, get him to go somewhere else? Different things, just getting to adjust mid-game and figure out different guys' idiosyncrasies. But so, yeah, there's a lot there into how do you move on from a guy like JT?
Yeah, the JT portion of it is really interesting, and I don't want to move on from Bichette too quickly because there is more to talk about there. But the JT reunion, I'm a little surprised it didn't happen already, and maybe that's just the way that I pictured it in my mind. I kind of expected both he and Schwarber to wrap up their free agency prior to the holiday, so that way they could enjoy themselves and get ready for spring training, especially when I assumed that both were coming back to Philadelphia. I'm almost curious if this is more gamesmanship. Like, hey, look, JT, you want to take your time? There's other fish in the sea, and we can figure this thing out and improve somewhere else, and we're willing to do that. Or the tough part is the front office runs the risk of upsetting the pitching staff. And I know you just spoke about it. I've interviewed JT in the past, and he spoke about how much he and the pitchers loved Marchand right away. Everybody has spoken highly of Stubbs and his ability to work on a scouting report, to call a game. Each one of those guys is also, I believe, in their last year of team control, and neither one of them has options. So anything you do, you run the risk that you're losing one of those guys, and neither one has proven anything offensively at the major league level. So you would assume that you're going to take a big drop off offensively there, and you could be resulting in a significant drop off in game calling, game framing, and controlling the running the running game on the base paths. I know that Stubbs is very good at controlling the running game as well, but it depends on who else you bring in. There's been rumors about them potentially trading for, I think it was Ryan Jeffers and Tyler, who's it, Stevenson from the Reds was another rumor that I had heard. Obviously that's tough. Zach Wheeler has openly talked about how he prefers throwing to JT Realmuto, so that would be a tough one to accept. Is just, hey, you know what, this guy is. We're just going to have to move on, and Wheels, I hope you're okay with that. Ultimately, I think that if you were talking a 1-to-1, like who do you want on the team more, JT or Bo? I think Bo gives you more potential both in the immediate and the long term. But you do have to consider all of those things. Another thing you do have to consider before we move into the other catching options as a formal topic, Johnny Fisher with the comment, if they sign Bichette, which position does he play? So we talked about a little bit how Trey is, especially after the rebound he had defensively this past year, how he's kind of ingrained at shortstop, at least for the time being. Bo Bichette, not necessarily known as the best defensive shortstop either. He dealt with an injury at the end of last season. When he came back for the World Series, he was moved off of his position. He was playing second base for the first time in his major league career. He's never played third base. If you do bring him in and push him to third, and you move Bohm because he makes a little bit more money than Stott, what happens there? Do you have to move him to second and move Stott over to third? That's where Stott made his major league debut, was at third base, but it didn't last very long. They moved him to the middle infield. And it's three guys in the middle infield if Bohm is the guy that they move on from, although he also falls in this category. All four guys we're talking about have less than stellar throwing arms. So moving a guy further away, whether it's Bichette or Stott, although it's going to be similar to what Bohm's giving you now as far as arm strength, you do run the risk that you take a step back defensively, especially if you're moving Stott over to third. Alec, your thoughts? Let's make a quick assumption for the purpose of this exercise that they do land Bichette. Where are you putting him?
Second base. Pretty easily second base. I don't think he has that great of an arm, so putting him at third would put him at a disadvantage, just like putting him at shortstop would. I think at second, he plays fine defense. Of course, there's going to be some adjustment. He hasn't played much there. It was mainly in like the World Series and then a little bit in the minors. But I think it's pretty obvious. He would go to second. You put Stott at third. And Stott's defense has been praised as overall infield defense, not just second base. So I wouldn't worry too much with Stott at third base.
Yeah, the only thing I would worry about is, and in this, we're assuming that Bohm is the one that's traded. He makes more money, so it makes sense they want to clear some payroll. And he has 1 year left versus 2 with Stott. The thing I would worry about with that move is that Stott is a Gold Glove caliber second baseman defensively. And Bichette, we don't know, right? Could he get there? Sure. But I think to play a position for the first time and assume that you're going to be at that caliber right away is a bold assumption. So if Bichette were to be at second base, you're downgrading your defense at second, and then you're moving him to third, a position he's not used to playing. So you'd essentially either break even or potentially downgrade. You're downgrading his impact rather because of how good he is at second, maybe not downgrading the overall result at third. Whereas you could just accept the lesser defender at third and keep Stott where he is at second base, where he's been stellar. So I would lean more towards that way. I would probably lean towards Bichette going to third and keeping Stott where he is. I don't want to mess with too many guys' positions. And you've already moved Stott around a couple times. I'd like to keep him where he is, keep that Gold Glove caliber defense on the right side of that infield. and then just you've lived with Bohm's up and down struggles there. I'd be willing to let Bichette rather learn from Bobby Dickerson, just as these other guys have improved under Dickerson, and see what happens with him at third.
But there's one more thing. I do think that you need to explore the trade market on Stott, because you can't ignore the fact that Aiden Miller's going to be right behind him for next season. And then you're going to have to ask the same question again. Well, do we trade Bryson Stott, or do we just wait longer on Aiden Miller, which he could be knocking on the door? Are you going to trade Aiden Miller? One of the problems the Phillies have had is developing hitters. And Aiden Miller seems like the first in a long while that could actually be an impact at the major league level. And that would really them regulate the payroll issues they're having further down the line.
For sure. I mean, Dombrowski's talked about it ad nauseum just as much as the media has, that you do need to find that balance of superstars and young superstars who don't yet make money so you can be competitive for the long term. That's how they're going to have to find a backfill to survive the last few years of Bryce Harper and Trey Turner's contracts when they're in their mid to late 30s, right? Like they need to start that process now of developing. And the one thing that I would say is that I agree with you that they should start looking into it. The benefit of going with moving Bohm, one, it clears more money for this first season. But Stott being under team control for 2 years not only gives you better defense, it also gives you the ability to take additional time if you need it with Miller, right? If there's more adjustments that need to be made this year, and yeah, he's one of their top rated prospects, but not exactly trying to kick the door down, you feel more comfortable with, well, you know what? We have Stott through next year as well. We can allow him to continue to work through whatever he's working through at the minor league level, and we'll eventually get him up here within the next 2 seasons. I'm also a big proponent of, and feel free to respond to this one, Alec, and let me know your thoughts, but I'm a big proponent of, if I have a young stud who is almost forcing my hand and kicking the door down, I don't care who's on my roster. Like if Miller is playing out of his mind and Stott is playing the same way that he did last season, where he ended up ultimately being in a platoon with Edmundo Sosa, I'm not going to let the fact that I like Bryson Stott prevent me from moving Aiden Miller up if he's telling us with the results on the field that he's ready to go right now.
No, that's 100% true. I would say the same thing. But I also think you need to acknowledge the fact that if you do bring Aiden Miller up, you need to give him time, because this is a kid that at every level that he has struggled, he has turned those struggles right around 360 into like hitting 300 and doing a heck of a job. So you need to make sure that he gets runway. You can't just bring him up as like platoon guy. And that's one of the things there. I wouldn't platoon Miller. I think he is an everyday major league talent. Maybe not right away, but you got to learn at the major league level where you're actually seeing major league pitching. You can simulate all you want in the tunnel with all those cool pitch machines they have nowadays that imitate whoever. But once you get on the field and actually that competition is really when you're going to see fruits of your labor, and whether Aiden Miller is going to develop into, say, an average major league middle infielder, or if he's going to turn into something a little bit more all-star caliber. So there's going to be time that takes, and maybe it's not a great 2027 because of that, but I think the Phillies would have the talent either way to be able to cover it. But yeah, I think there's a lot of factors here. There's a couple different ways you go, but I'm also wondering, and I just kind of thought about this, how much pull does Bryce Harper still have on this team? Because from all reports, Bryson Stott is his guy. They're both Vegas guys. Like, would he put his foot down at the word that, hey, we're going to trade Bryson Stott? Not that, what is he going to do? He's going to keep playing, but you'd rather have a happy Harper than they just traded my best friend away Harper.
True. Bryce Harper's also big on winning. So, like, you know what I mean? Like, if
Yeah,
you.
and he wants his ring.
Right.
Like Kyle Schwarber has a ring. Trey Turner has a ring. Bryce Harper does not.
Which is crazy. Like,
Yeah.
that Nats team was him, and then they let him go and immediately won without him. Kind of crazy. But
The people that said that, oh, look, they got rid of him and they won without Harper, they would have been even better as a team if he would have been on that team. They still would
for
have won.
sure.
But they wouldn't have had to do the whole, oh no, we started like 18 and 38. What do we do now? And then turn like the playoffs. And remember, they just eked by the Milwaukee Brewers because of the error in the outfield. Was that Trent Grisham? Or was that I can't remember the other guy's name.
I do not recall the other guy's like in the mind.
But that's the only reason why the Nats made it past the Brewers. So yeah. Anyway, that's kind of a side conversation. But yeah, the point is there's a lot of different dominoes that can fall here.
And I didn't want to interrupt you, but one of the reasons I brought up Billy's message in the chat, and appreciate the love, Billy, dude's back again. He found us a couple weeks by accident, and he's been coming back every single week. Love it. So thanks for the support. But the one thing that I thought early on in what you said, and why I brought up Billy's comment to begin with, is I don't think that I'm not thinking platoon when I think of that, but like if he's forcing your hand and you want to bring Miller up, you don't want to overwhelm him and be like, guess what, kid? Second base is on you now, or third base is on you now, depending on who else is there. But if you, I do agree, and the organization agrees that you do have to give these guys runway, right? The whole reason they didn't call up Justin Crawford after the trade deadline is because they got another guy, and there was going to be not enough consistent playing time for him. You can still have Miller play 3 to 4 times a week. Like I'm assuming that Miller would be called up if Stott continues to play how he did last season at the plate. His defense is more than good, but if the offensive results are you're a platoon player, then maybe he takes on the bench role. Yeah, I mean, look, we're talking about a lot of dominoes falling here, so bear with me because I know that. Please don't ask, well, what happens to Otto Kemp, right? We'll get to that in the next couple of weeks. But if Bryson Stott isn't performing well and Miller is forcing your hand, well, Stott can be the left-handed Sosa off the bench. He can be a utility guy that plays every position in the infield to give somebody a day off when they need it. And then if Miller doesn't pick up right away, or he needs a platoon in that first year with out of the 2 you have left with Stott, assuming this were to happen this year, then you could platoon them a little bit as you figuring it out. You have to see how he plays, right? You're going to give him run to start. And John, I see your comment here. I feel like I'm doing a poor job of explaining, but I'm not calling him up with the intent of platooning. You call him up, you see what he has, and you're not pushing Stott out of the picture entirely. You allow him to be that once or twice a week guy in the infield, similar to what Sosa is right now. And then if Miller starts to struggle, instead of sending him back down, then you figure out what you're going to do, mixing and matching the pieces from there. So that was a lot of words to get to what I wanted to do. But I think the goal.
Let me hit you with a hypothetical.
Go ahead.
After July 23rd last season, Bryson Stott hit 307. That's the second half of the season. He hit over 300 the entire time. He was excellent. So, what would you do, say, if round trade deadline, Bryson Stott's playing well, but let's say Aiden Miller's hitting like 350 in AAA, like something ridiculous. And that's why I said 350. I don't expect him to do that. But something that it's like, wow, this kid is absolutely on fire. He's forcing it. You know that you're going to have to trade Stott in the offseason anyway to accommodate it. This is the big if in the room, if they sign Bichette. But would you consider at the trade deadline trading Bryson Stott if he's playing well either for a need, say if like a starting pitcher goes down, swap them for a starter, or enhance the farm system with a couple X, and then call Aiden Miller up? Or are you just saying no, Aiden Miller needs to be, new season, new guy? We're not calling him up mid-season.
I don't think I'm trading stock unless I get blown away by something, right? Like if there's a pitcher with control left available and it's stop +1 to go get a guy and it's a need,
or like
hypothetically,
two interesting
if
starting
like
pitching prospects, because the Phillies don't have any starting pitching depth.
Right, and then or you could even take those prospects and flip them in another deal depending on what you need to do. But you're right, like they could use it to retool a little bit if Miller's forcing their hand. I don't see that happening, but you're not asking that. You're asking what I would do. So I'm going to commit to something for you, Alec. I would say no. And the reason is because I think that you do need to give Miller that chance to fail and get back up just as he has at every other level. And if you mid-season with a Bichette in tow decide, hey, I'm gonna push Stott out the door, and Miller, it's sink or swim time, buddy. Go out there and get it. That's a lot of pressure to put on a kid, and I'm not doing that because I think that I do want to see the long-term success of the young kid. I want to fail safe in case he comes up and struggles right away. I don't want to put crunch time, end of the season, hey man, if you fail, we fail kind of deal. Not that that's how they would phrase it, obviously, but that's how it may feel for him. And I want to avoid that with young guys. I want them to come up clean. Doesn't have to be beginning of the year, but I want to make sure that I have an option to help them through and give them some time off if they begin to struggle.
Yeah, I'm at a similar place where I probably just give Miller an entire, in my opinion, win the job out of spring training kind of deal. I just think that's a better path for a top prospect like him. I think it can be smoother, but again, like I was saying, you give him that runway, then you give him a 162 to show us what you can do and adjust on the fly.
Well, it'll be interesting to see, but all of that really does hinge on them agreeing to a deal with Bichette on Monday. Before we move on to the next topic, because we're going to talk about the dominoes and what happens from there. All reports seem to point to that if they do make this move, you're going to have to move one of those infielders, and you're likely saying goodbye to JT Realmuto, who's probably going to get between 12 and 15 mil a season for 2 or 3 seasons. So your gut feeling right now, Alec, I'm going to put your feet to the fire, if you will. Let's commit to an opinion right now. We can always change it. This is Sports Talk Radio. We know what we're doing here, but feet to the fire. We leave that meeting Monday. Does an announcement come shortly after that the Phillies sign Bo Bichette, or do they walk away and go back to the original plan of JT Realmuto?
You're saying whether I think it's going to happen?
Oh, yeah. Yep. If you want to put a percentage on it, that's fine too, but let's commit to something for the people out there. Do you think, doesn't have to be signed on Monday, but do you think Monday is progressive enough that the Phillies start 2026 with Bo Bichette in red pinstripes?
I'm going to put it like this. I feel most of the reports I've seen about Bichette are about the fact that Bichette is interested in playing with the Phillies and signing with the Phillies. And I think that says a lot more than that the Phillies are interested in Bichette. Because if a guy wants to play a certain place and wants to go to a certain nation, usually he's going to go. They'll figure out the numbers in between. So if that's where we're at in this, feels like they're going to do it. I'm going to put it at, and if you want me to put it at a percentage, I don't know if I want to go higher than 70%.
70%. I'm writing it down. Alec, 70% that Phillies get Bichette. Don't worry, people. I'm writing it down. That way we can make fun of Alec the next time he's on when the reports are that they stood absolutely no chance.
Hey, man,
That being
just look at my predictions for the 2025 season. Go back and read them and be like, oh, he almost the record completely right. Like,
yeah,
I was within a win or two. I forget if I got it dead on or within a win or. Either way, I said that, and I also said Chris Sanchez would win Cy Young, and he finished second unanimously.
yeah.
So I'm just
but
saying.
Your predictions were spot on, Alex. So if you're feeling 70%, I'm feeling pretty good about the possibility.
All right, let's hear it from you. What you got?
Okay. All right. I'd say I still think it's like 25-30% that they end up getting him. But what you just said about all the reports seem to be like Bichette's interested in them more than they're interested in him. Not more so, but like it almost feels like
it's mutual. It's mutual.
Yeah, it almost feels like the movie trope where like I wasn't even interested in the cute girl because she's out of my league, and then her friend tells me like, nah, she thinks you're cute. Like that's kind of what it feels like. Dombrowski was like, wait,
ooh,
me? Interested in me? For real? All right, let's set up a meeting. Let's go on a date then. So Monday is date one for the Phillies, but I put it at 30% that they end up in a relationship. So we're gonna put that in the comments too, Kyle. 30% Phillies and Bichette keep dating after Monday. Boom. We got it.
There's one other thing that I feel like we should mention is that one of the main suitors, the Blue Jays, who we would expect to be in on their own player, they signed Okamoto to a size deal. He's probably going to play third base. You probably move Ernie Clement to second, and Ernie Clement showed great things last year. Are you just going to give up on that? Are you just going to say
I wouldn't, but
like no, we'll they've already had an amazing offseason, the Blue Jays. So I'm saying,
man.
I feel like they're basically out of that market.
It's possible. I'm looking right now. Who was there? Andres Jimenez. That's right. Yeah, Jimenez would play short. Clement would play second. Okamoto over at third. He looks promising. I mean, it's almost like they don't have a place for him. There's other people that need infielders. We talk to our guy Corey Naito all the time, who's from New York, former. He probably considers himself a Yankees fan, but for Phillies fans, the sake of Phillies fans ripping him, I'm going to say that he's a former Yankees fan. That being said, he talked about how they've needed infield help, and he wishes that they were in on him more, especially now that they have. When Grisham accepted the qualifying offer, it kind of threw off a lot of what what people thought they might need or want. So it would be interesting. It would be interesting, that's for sure. The dominoes would fall. We already talked a little bit about what those dominoes might be. One of the infielders would have to move, whether it be Stott or Bohm. If you want the immediate savings, Bohm makes more money and only has 1 year left of team control. And with his money coming off the books and then $38 million coming off from two guys, and then I believe Sosa's in the last year of his team control. So you're talking about like after this season, whether they make trades or not, they're like $60 million cheaper next year, or they have $60 million less on the payroll next year just to start. So they can make things work, right? I think we had a comment back. I'm going to go back and find it from my guy Tommy. Where is he? He had a comment in here about kind of them. There it is. They've been conscious about keeping the payroll level. Schwarber in his deal getting $18 million in the first year, $33 million a year after that, to make up for the fact that they do have so much extra cash owed to players this year. Like that $20 million, I don't see that $20 million being reduced at all, except for by the veteran minimum wherever he signs late in spring training. Nick Castellanos, I'm referring to. I don't think that they end up getting any savings for him, but
I think they'll end up finding someone for $5 million. I think. It's not like it's going to be a crazy amount of money saved at all. You're going to be paying $15 million for Castellanos to be playing for another team.
But you might have to give a team a prospect with him. Like you might have to
If you're
eat
giving a
15
prospect,
and give them a single A guy. Like
you need to give them they need to take on more. You're giving up a minor league guy than $5 million. Like no,
maybe Miami does just because they're a team that has to spend money, right? Like I mean, maybe the Pirates do after they strike out on all the other free agents that they're offering money to. But again, they're going to expect you to eat the huge majority. My argument would be if I'm a team waiting for Nick Castellanos, I guess the alternative is like Nick doesn't have a no trade clause. So your best shot of acquiring him is while he's available in trade. Once he gets cut, you're competing against 29 other teams. Like maybe that's the argument as to why somebody might go take a flyer on him. But I just don't see it happening. I assume that he's going to be cut.
I mean, he's not going to be on this team.
I mean, the way that the front office has talked about it, when they talk about the outfield being set, his name doesn't come up.
They've talked about him being under contract. Him as a change of scenery guy.
Yeah, literally said that out loud. Like, what front office says that about a dude on their roster? Like, I just
feel like
that's how done they are.
Like, if you're targeting someone as a change of scenery guy, or you just signed a guy that's just like, yeah, I think we'll be better here. I think he was just a change of scenery guy. No, you never say that about your own guy.
Max Kepler last year, like he was change of scenery. Again, how about this one? No, not this one. I'm sorry. It's going to be wild when Cassie comes back and platoons in left with Marsh. Well, I mean, I could see it if they don't find a trade partner. Like, let's just see what happens.
That would be so weird for the vibes. Like, it just doesn't feel like would contribute anything. I feel like Otto Kemp gives you more offensively in a short side platoon for less money than Nick Castellanos does.
Again, I mean, I know we differ a little bit, but I'm considering it a sunk cost at this point.
Yeah, no, mentally I am considering it sunk cost. I just also think that I don't think you can close the books on, oh, he's not going anywhere, we gotta release him. I think somebody will take a flyer.
Somebody might get desperate. Yeah, you're right.
He has enough pedigree in the major leagues that again, even if it's $3 million, I feel like somebody will pay that, jump the line instead of trying to wait on waivers, negotiate with other teams.
Maybe, yeah. That would be the one way I see a trade coming across, is if a team just decides, hey, look, we don't want to compete with anybody. We know we want this guy. Let's go get him.
I do have a quick response to
yeah,
Roddy. I'm saying that Casti doesn't give... I think Otto Kemp and Castellanos give you about the same in a short-sided platoon. Overall, I think Castellanos gives you more than Otto Kemp. There's potential with Otto Kemp that he could end up giving more than, mid-30s Nick Castellanos, but he has to prove that first.
Right. So we talked about we know that there's going to be financial implications. Everybody who's excited about this meeting on Monday has said the same thing, that there will be dominoes to fall. The reports, for those who have spoken to people close to the Phillies front office, have said that they would have to get, quote, creative to make this work. But that they're more than willing to speak to him. So that at the very least should be a promising sign for Phillies fans, that like they're checking back in at the top of the market. To me, that's pretty. That's a good sign.
The fact that they are still there, yeah, I do think that in general is almost a little bit of a surprise. It's the Phillies, so of course they would check in. But I think to publicly,
I think that's what that second meeting that people talked about too.
Yeah, it sounds like maybe there was a preliminary phone call or something, but definitely not like everybody in attendance, everybody went to go. I'm wondering if it was meeting with an agent, or if it was maybe just someone one-on-one with Bichette. I don't know. I couldn't begin to speculate on what we're specifically mentioning is like JP Morosi mentioned that this is the second meeting. But
right.
I couldn't speak to anything what that could have been.
Yeah, and I've only seen one or two people mention it. They could be like the other person could be referencing Morosi as well, for all I know. So, but we talked about there's going to be. I hate to reuse the word, but things will change. They will have to get creative. We just talked about what they're going to have to do in the infield and potentially move people around. We can't assume this because, again, a lot of money is clearing off the books. They really only have minimal commitments beyond the next 2 years when a lot of money like Duran and Wheeler come off the books as well. But they are going to likely pivot away from JT Realmuto if they bring in Bo Bichette. I don't think it's required, but all the signs seem to point that they were hesitant on whatever the contract asks from Realmuto's camp are currently. So to bring in another big salary, roughly $30 million in Bichette, and then add another 15 potentially plus if you kind of bend to the will of Realmuto's camp, you're going to have to make a change at catcher. And we talked about Stubbs, we talked about Marchand, and I understand that both of those guys have a lot of experience with the pitching staff. Maybe they could help a newcomer, but we do have to keep a close eye on what the free agent market looks like. There's been some rumors about potential trade partners. We mentioned it earlier. Tyler Stevenson and Ryan Jeffers both are in, I believe, the last year of their respective contracts as well. Both under 30. So that, if you bring a guy in and he impresses and you can sign him to an extension, maybe that would be great as a trade candidate. However, not assuming trades, the current free agent market is pretty bare. I mean, you mentioned a guy earlier. You're talking about a Victor Caratini. You're talking about Christian Vazquez, maybe Elias Diaz, who had like a good year a couple years ago. We talked about trading for him as a backup, I think, on this pod a few years ago. And Mitch Garver's out there. Jonah Heim, a guy who was just released. Jacob Stallings, Martin Maldonado. Oh, never mind. Maldonado retired. Sorry about that.
I do. There is someone on the trade market that I'd be interested in, and I'm wondering what his price tag would be. But,
okay, so we'll start with the trade targets then. So give me your thoughts. Who's the guy that we haven't mentioned on the trade target you'd be interested in?
I'm interested to see what the Pirates hold as a price tag on Henry Davis. We're talking about a guy who was literally a number 1 overall draft pick, but just hasn't hit well in the majors so far. But he has hit pretty well in the minors. 79 games at AAA, 316 average. Double-A, not great average-wise, but an 847 OPS, and then over 1,000 OPS at A and A, high A. He hasn't played a ton of minors ball, but it's about the same amount as he's played in the majors, and it's night and day with the offensive numbers. I'm wondering what a guy like that could do under like Kevin Long and Don Mattingly, and see if you can bring out the true potential in a guy like that. Would the Pirates even consider trading him when, it be kind of low on him? That's the thing I'm unsure of, but maybe that's also, I don't know. All I know is that I'd be interested in getting a former number 1 overall pick who has shown potential in the minors and just hasn't translated in parts of 3 seasons in the major leagues.
Yeah, I think you'd have to give up a decent amount just because of his kind of status and the regard that he's been held in as a minor leaguer and his pre-draft status. Only 25 years old, plenty of team control left, so could be an interesting, or 20. He'll be in his age 26 season, so it'd be interesting. You'd have to give up something for him, but that would make you not have to revisit this exact same problem in a year or two, right? You'd have somebody that you could rely on. I think everybody really wanted Henry Ford before he was traded to Washington for
a Ford as well,
reliever, which is crazy. But
I like Ford from what he did in the World Baseball Classic with Great Britain, because he really did seem to be a team leader of that club, and it definitely showed me that he had potential to be a major league catcher.
Yeah, I think that could be a move. I haven't heard his name mentioned. That doesn't mean that the right cost doesn't get it done for you. Tyler Stevenson, I think that the Reds have 3 catchers right now. Stevenson
only has a year left, I think.
Yeah, and he's in the last year of his contract. Not necessarily the greatest hitter. His average, though, 261 average for his career, 338 on base. a 426 slug, his 162 game average, 27 doubles and 18 homers. I'd take that as a catcher in a heartbeat, especially if I'm not solving the long-term issue. Taking a look at Ryan Jeffers from Minnesota. Minnesota, oddly enough, after trading everybody away and rumors running rampant early in the offseason that they were going to look to move on from potentially Pablo Lopez and Byron Buxton, they have pivoted and said that they're ready to start competing, which, again, is crazy.
That's a head scratcher. You trade away like 11 guys at the trade deadline, and you're like, no, we got like 2 or 3 guys left, and I think that's enough. We'll be fine with them. Do they have a couple of young guys in Minnesota that interest me? Sure. But at the same time, it's like, hey, just break it down if you're going to break it down. You don't half-ass something like that.
And for his numbers, really, first of all, he's increased the amount of games he's played the last 2 seasons. So he had not played 100 games in a season at all until 2024. He played in 122 and then 119. His 162 game average, 26 doubles, 21 homers. So, you're probably looking at like the mid to high teens in both if he's playing part-time. But
whoever the Phillies get, I'm really looking at like pretty much 50-50 season split between them and Marchand. I'm not really interested in looking and getting, all right, this is one of the better catchers on the market. Even Stevenson, in my opinion, would be kind of like on the higher side of that, which is weird to say, but you don't need to have stars at every position, especially if you're signing a star second baseman, or would-be second baseman Bichette. You're kind of replacing that star power already. So if you can just be competent at the catcher position, steady, and see what you can get out of Marchand in half a season, whatever his development takes forward, I think that's fine.
Yeah, it would be interesting, but they're going to have to consider all of their options when it comes to catchers, both trades and free agent market. Oddly enough, the 2 guys that I mentioned, both are they're estimated to make roughly $7 million this year, both in their final year. Or I think Jeffers actually agreed to a 6.7 and avoided arbitration. Stevenson has filed arbitration. So I saw that.
No, you didn't.
But Stevenson did file they did not come to an agreement, so the projection is $7 million. I don't know what the filing numbers were, but you're talking about half the cost of what the estimates are for JT. You might be able to save even more money by going with Victor Caratini for 1 year, whatever the case may be. So, any other thoughts on the catcher's market before we move on? I want to hit one quick hitter before we get to the Hall of Fame vote, and I don't want to ignore Palmer's comment about the bullpen. So we'll give us your last thoughts on the JT situation. Do they need to prioritize him, or are you comfortable if they go get a Bichette with one of these other options, especially looking at the free agent market?
So I was listening to the Phillies show the other day, and of course Jim Salisbury is one of the co-hosts on there. They do a great job. But he was mentioning about how he believes that the Phillies both have possibly a 2-year deal and a 3-year deal offer on the table for Realmuto. But it does sound like it is the money that is the problem. And I just don't think the Phillies are willing to really capitulate. And I think these serious talks with Bichette is like, well, we can figure out how to keep our team just as competitive, if not better, if we reallocate resources. Or maybe, bite a bullet here on the cost of the bill that's going to get fronted. The further things go on, the less it feels like JT Realmuto will be back with the Phillies. And frankly, I have no idea what the market for JT Realmuto looks like. I haven't heard a peep out of like other teams. I don't even know where like the Giants nonsense was coming from, because they have Patrick Bailey, who is one of the best defenders at the backstop position. Like, he's not that as good offensively, but he's good. He is.
Right.
So I don't see where the Giants would come into play. I don't know where JT Realmuto is going to play. I really don't. maybe he ends up taking like a 1-year deal with the Phillies, and no, he wants multi-year. He's not going to
Yeah,
take a 1-year deal.
because this is his last
That's
chance to
silly
get
of me to even put out in the ether.
This is his last chance to get a multi-year deal, to get good money. If he stays good defensively, he could still latch on somewhere.
We have some interesting breaking news.
Interesting breaking news.
It's not anything that impacts the Phillies anymore, but it is about a Philly from last season. From Mark Feinsand, MLB has announced that free agent Max Kepler has received an 80-game suspension after testing positive for this is going to be rough for me. Eptrenbolone and trombolone.
Sure.
Performance-enhancing substance in violation of the Major League Baseball's Joint Prevention and Treatment Program. That's fascinating.
Where are you seeing this?
Mark Feinsand, Twitter, @Feinsand.
Wow.
Zalecki just retweeted
80 games suspension. My goodness.
That is fascinating.
Can I say one thing?
Sure.
If he was taking that last season, whatever this drug is, then this is a terrible commercial for that drug, is watching Max Kepler's 2025 season.
Yeah, I'm wondering what it does. You know what? Talk about Max Kepler for a second so I can Google what in the world this actually is for everybody listening.
Kepler, I mean, maybe he started taking it after the trade deadline when his numbers ticked up. Who knows? If he was taking it all season long, if I'm another player who's interested in performance-enhancing drugs, I'm not taking that one. I'll tell you that much. Not to hate on the guy, but not interesting breaking news, but not the breaking news I think we all were hoping for. So, Alec, way to freak everybody out at the end of the hour.
Well, true. I listen. But it definitely was.
You did tell everybody that it wasn't necessarily Phillies news while it was Phillies news.
I tried to temper that, but it was quite interesting.
Anything on that drug? I don't see anything.
I can't figure out what it actually does. And it is an anabolic steroid. Yeah.
And it's
at least I think it is. Yeah.
Yeah. How about that? Yeah, that's what I'm seeing. Everything. It's one of the most common things that people look for when doing performance enhancing drug testing is this particular compound.
So yeah, that's
how about
listen, there's a joke in there somewhere about, a German and steroids, but
no,
it's a
don't
little
do
too
it.
1980s in taste.
Well, again, they're not working. He's not exactly Ivan Drago out there.
No.
No. And one quick hitter before we get to the Hall of Fame item and wrap up. So obviously we talked about it a little bit. The team brings in Donnie Baseball. Don Mattingly should be a Hall of Famer, but he will be holding things down on the bench, giving additional support to Rob Thompson. The one thing that I noticed, and they talked about it on the Philly show, so I wanted to get your thoughts on this before we move to the last topic of the day, is the front office during their press conference mentioned that he'll be a great sounding board for Thompson, for our manager, and for our stars. And last year, with some of the issue with Nick Castellanos, and there were talks that Matt Strahm became a little too hard-headed and a little too outspoken for the franchise's liking, on top of just having a great presence in there. And I think it meant more to me when I heard it initially. It meant more like, yes, okay, Thompson has experience and he has experience coaching, but Mattingly did it, right? He was the superstar for a while. So this is a guy I can relate to even more if I have issues. But they talked about the alternative. Is it because there has been a kind of, not an uprising, but have things started to not go the right way in the locker room, and this guy's being brought in to kind of stabilize that? So did you get that thought at all before we move to the last topic, Alec, that maybe this was a stabilization move more than it was the name and the family relation?
What I think it is mostly is it's adding something to the Phillies clubhouse that they haven't had. Have they had guys who have contributed at the major league level? Sure. Caleb Cotham did pitch with the Reds. But they don't really have someone who was an all-star, was an everyday player, was someone that, faced the spotlight of Major League Baseball in his prime. And I think that gives them just an extra perspective to have in that clubhouse. I don't think it's, reining in Thompson or possibly Thompson's replacement or anything I've seen like that. Doesn't sound like Donnie Baseball is really interested in managing again whatsoever. So it just seems like they're adding another piece of the puzzle. They're adding something that wasn't there before. And if that's better communication for your stars, like Bryce Harper, to have someone that they can look to and be like, wow, that's a guy that I had a poster of when I was a kid, or even that like my dad had a poster of in his den or something like that. Like, it's something that connects them in a different way than the current coaching staff has before to the sport of baseball in general. So I think it's a net overall good. And if it does help the Phillies land Bo Bichette, I think that is just one of the big points of saying, wow, look at this.
Well, I think that it was definitely just, he is who he is. I think it'll be a help to balance the coaching staff a little bit, give a little bit of extra support to our guy Topper. But interesting thing, I think that that'll be a subplot to this Phillies season in the months where there's not as much news. If anything comes out about any disgruntled or whatever, or maybe his office or corner of the clubhouse being very popular this year, maybe that's something to watch. But I'm not going to rest my laurels on that one. I think it was just the move you make when you want to add a bench coach. You go get the best guy available, especially when you have a family connection. So I'm not too worried about that, but something that we could watch throughout the year. All right, Alec, we're going to move on to our final topic of the day, and that is the Hall of Fame voting trackers. So there's a great guy, Ryan Thibodeau, on Blue Sky.
Not on Twitter anymore, only Blue Sky.
Not Mr. Tibbs. Make sure you go give him a follow. He does great stuff with a couple others. He has his pinned post on Blue Sky, has all the others who help him out with everything. But Palmer, we will get to the bullpen in a moment, but I want to make sure that I touch on the Hall of Fame now that we've started that one. So former Phillies who are on the ballot still. Bobby Abreu is in his 7th year of eligibility. Never made it to the majors with the club, but Gio Gonzalez is on the ballot. Cole Hamels in his first year on the ballot. Howie Kendrick in his first year. Hunter Pence in his first year. But the big names at the end of the ballot: Jimmy Rollins in his 5th year. Chase Utley in his 3rd. Chase Utley seems like he may be on his way to being elected to the Hall of Fame. So far, with the public and anonymous ballots, he has 66.2% of the vote for Utley in the ballot so far.
66.4.
Oh, okay. I guess I have to reload it because it was 66.2 when I checked earlier. Anyway, the 75% is the threshold you need to reach. Only 35.8% of the ballots have been put in so far. So if the number of ballots continue with Utley's name listed, excuse me, all signs are pointing to the Phillies Wall of Famer, second baseman and World Series champion, making his way to baseball immortality. Alec, your thoughts on Chase Utley's case, and do you think this is the year that he gets it?
He's not getting in this year. I can say that confidently. He's trending well again. I think he has 13 net plus votes so far of the public ballot. So guys who didn't vote for him, guys or gals who didn't vote for him in the last voting cycle, are now putting his name on the ballot. So he is increasing. He debuted at a strong number, and he's kept increasing his numbers over time. He was around like 50% with the public ballot last year, I believe. But now is, sitting above 60%. I think this is either going to be a next year or the year after kind of deal for Utley. But he's going to get in. It's either going to be his 4th or 5th time through. But overall, I do want to mention the Phillies are performing pretty well on the ballot this year. Bobby Abreu is plus 11 votes from where he was last year on the, again, public votes. Jimmy Rollins is 9. And I think one of the bigger surprises is Cole Hamels has debuted fairly strong.
Yeah.
He's sitting at 32.2%. And for anybody to debut above even, say, 25% is a good start for if you get the conversation going to roll down the ball down the hill to, say, 8, 9, 10-year mark. He could be a Hall of Famer.
Yeah, that's the beauty of having guys on there for 10 years, right? You can kind of feel it out the first couple of years. Yeah. And not everybody has to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. It doesn't mean that they're any less worthy of being in the Hall. Just for quick hitter, because there's way more information that we could put in there. But Utley's peak is really what people have relied on. It when he was healthy at his peak, he was incredible. His WAR 7 is better than
he was
anybody.
The second best National League player outside of Albert Pujols.
Yeah, from 2005 to 2010, the only position players that had a B WAR of 40 or greater are Chase Utley at 45.5 and Pujols at 52.1. Notable former MVPs behind him, A-Rod at 38.3 and Joe Mauer at 31.8. That's how impactful Utley was. And yes, WAR isn't the perfect thing. It takes into account your position and a lot of other things. But Utley's peak is an all-time peak. I mean, the guy was absolutely incredible, and that's not just being biased as a Philadelphia native my entire life. I mean, over that 5 or 6 year run, he hit 298, 162 homers, 262 doubles, 572 RBIs, 90 steals, a 911 OPS, 133 OPS plus, and while this stat isn't official, I have to assume somewhere near 1,000 hit by pitches over that span. Again, we mentioned it, second only to Albert Pujols over that time period. They won 5 NL East titles, 2 NL pennants, won a World Series. He has a better average WAR than the majority of the current second basemen in the Hall of Fame. His career WAR is 15th all-time among second basemen, and only 10 Hall of Fame second basemen have marks higher than his. His 7-year peak is 9th of all second basemen all-time. So the guy has an argument, but that short period of time is going to be the thing that counts against him. Like you said, he may not make it this year, but I don't think you're talking about a guy in year 8, 9, or 10 finally getting over the hump. I think if it's not this year, he's in there before his 5th season on the ballot is complete.
No, absolutely. I do think by year 5 he's in.
Another guy, Jimmy Rollins, last year, 18% of the vote. This year he has so far in about 25%, so a nice little jump up.
Yeah, he's gained 9 votes.
Rollins which is great. Again, I don't think he's going to get there right away. He just got inducted into the Phillies Wall of Fame. They're again quick hitters, but there's a couple reasons to believe why he would be ready. He's one of 5 shortstop in history with at least 2,000 hits, 200 home runs, alongside Cal Ripken Jr., Derek Jeter, Robin Yount, and a guy who's never going to make it because of PEDs, Miguel Tejada. He finished with 2,455 career hits, 4 Gold Gloves, 3 All-Stars, a Silver Slugger, an MVP, a World Series, 2 NL pennants, 5 NL East titles. To me, that's a guy who I mean, there's so many things about the totality of what Jimmy Rollins did. Again, his peak may have been smaller, but he was one of the best defensive and offensive shortstops in the league at a time where you had A-Rod and Jeter and the end of Ripken's career, and you had Nomar, and you had all these Tejada. We already mentioned him. So many big-name shortstops offensively at the time, and this guy, he was overshadowed, but he was just as good as a lot of them.
Yeah, I think the problem with Rollins is, and I do think he's Hall of Fame worthy, I think the problem is your average Joe that didn't really watch him when he played isn't really going to see the Hall of Fame candidacy on the back of the baseball card. Yes, 2,400 hits, and yeah, if you know that he is the franchise hit leader for the Phillies, I think that's a big factor. Again, this is saying a lot of the voters definitely didn't watch him play,
Right.
or at least not heavily. But if you look at the back of the baseball card, you're looking at, a 264 batting average, 743 OPS, a 95 career OPS plus. That's more a factor of him playing in an era that, a lot of guys were juiced for first, say, like 5 years of his career when he was mostly at his peak. And it wasn't a pitching heavy era until he was in the back half of his career. Not to say like he was a great mix of power, speed, consistency, a great fielder that probably deserves more Gold Gloves, especially on the front half of his career. It's actually shocking to look at his baseball reference page and see he didn't win a Gold Glove till 2007.
Yeah, which is crazy.
That's insane because this is a guy who honestly gets kind of disrespected in terms of that certain award and recognition of how great a fielder he was. I want to say, and this could be slightly controversial, I want to say that if Omar Vizquel hadn't shot himself in the foot with, I believe it was a domestic violence accusation or something of the like, if that hadn't happened, he was kind of trending towards getting inducted because of defense and, accumulating like 2,700 hits and being part of a lot of great teams. I think that would have pushed the candidacy for Rollins, because right now the best way to compare him is to like Barry Larkin. But Barry Larkin also got on base a whole lot more than Rollins did and was a better average guy in general. Definitely Rollins was a better power hitter, and you could argue even a better speed guy. But overall, offensively, you look at Larkin and say, well, here you go. Here's the reasoning. So it's going to be a tough path for Rollins. And I'm sorry, that was a little long-winded.
No, it's okay.
But
I think
it's gonna take a push for Rollins, because sometimes, let's say this is the 10th year on the ballot for Rollins, he's gonna get some momentum behind him, but I just don't know if it's gonna be enough.
Yeah, years 8, 9, and 10, I think he's gonna get close. I personally see him getting in. If anybody's recording these takes somewhere, I'm not gonna put them in the comments, but if anybody's writing these ones down, I think he does get in before his 10 years are up. But I don't think it's going to be until
if I have
8,
to make a
10.
prediction, I don't think he does. I think if he gets in, it's Veterans Committee.
That's fair. Also, fun little note. I was looking up when you mentioned Vizquel. I wanted to get more info. It was domestic abuse, and he also had a lawsuit about sexual harassment. But also under personal life on his Wikipedia page is an incredible snippet that he apparently had a crazy feud with Jose Mesa, another former Philly. When they played together in Cleveland, Mesa fell apart in the '97 World Series, and after the game, Vizquel came out and said, "The eyes of the world were focused on every move we made. Unfortunately, Jose's own eyes were vacant, completely empty, nobody home. You could almost see right through him." That pissed Mesa off so bad that he said, "If I face him 10 more times, I'm going to hit him 10 more times. I want to kill him." And while it didn't last 10 times, the next 3 times he faced him, he hit him with a pitch. That's incredible.
My God. I've never heard that.
Me neither. That's incredible Phillies lore right there. And it's barely connected to the Phillies. Just Jose Mesa going out of his way to hit.
Yeah, but if you're going to drop that nugget, it's the perfect time for it. Wow.
Oh, man. Sorry to take away from the talk, but I love that.
No, that's a hell of a quote. Could you imagine, say the Phillies make it to the World Series and Johan Duran blows it or something, and let's put it up Bryson Stott. Bryson Stott's the guy just like, yeah, we were all tuned in and focused, but Johan Duran was too focused on his goddamn graphics. Like, could you
Yeah, I
imagine?
mean,
I feel like that's the same kind of like what the level would be.
I left off the beginning of the quote because I didn't see it at first, and I'm going to put it in the chat for everybody. He says, "Even my little boy told me to get him. If I face him 10 more times, I'll hit him 10 more times. I want to kill him." That's absolutely incredible, incredible stuff.
That's
Uh,
wow.
man, what a quote on the way
90s
almost out the
baseball,
door.
everybody.
Right, right. Um, last guy I want to touch on. I know we joked about some other guys. I don't think Kendrick has much of a chance. I don't think
No,
Pence has much of a
no.
chance. But there's two guys. One who's been on the ballot a little bit longer. One who is his first year, and we'll start with him because it's more recent. Cole Hamels on the ballot, and he has a surprising case when you break it down. So from
A
07 to
lot of strikeouts.
2016, big strikeout machine. He was really good. In 2014, he got a 2.46 ERA, struck out 198 batters, finished sixth in NL Cy Young voting. He went that in 2015, he threw the no-hitter against the Cubs in his final start with the Phillies. During his 10-year peak, he averaged 4.6 WAR per season, essentially pitching like an all-star every year. His 126 ERA plus in that span is further proof that he was a cut above the average starting pitcher for a significant period of time. He did fall off a little bit, but from 17 to 19, he still made 83 starts and had a sub-4 ERA with a 9.3 WAR as well. So he remained a valuable pitcher for a very long time, and he was above average pitcher at that. His strikeouts were huge, 2,500 strikeouts. There's only 40 pitchers in that group, and the majority of them are in the Hall or clearly on their way there with guys like Sale, Greinke, Clayton
He's
Kershaw.
11th career-wise in strikeouts by a left-handed pitcher.
It's pretty impressive.
That's 11th in Major League Baseball history. So I do think there are some numbers that you can point to that's like, yeah, you know what, Cole Hamels did enough that it seems like his career, it puts him as a Hall of Famer. I feel like he's going to be kind of like 50-50, whether he gets in or not. But again, momentum right now is pointing, I think, in a good direction for him. But yeah, very interested to see where that goes. As far as our second candidate, you definitely watched him more than I did. But let us hear what you think about Bobby Abreu.
Yeah, I got to tell you, when I first heard that Bobby Abreu, like that, there was an argument to be made for him to be in the Hall of Fame. I, unfortunately, when I was younger, just listened to what all the people on sports talk radio told me, and were like, that guy sucks, right? But when you look at the numbers, the guy had a very good career and was consistent for a very long time. So just on the surface, again, quick version. Only two-time All-Star, one-time Gold Glove Award winner, LOL, and then a one-time Silver Slugger. But he reached base 3,979 times, which is good for 49th all-time in Major League history, a sport that's 140 years old at this point. Like, that's insanity. Of the 48 players ahead of him in that category, all but 7 are in the Hall of Fame already. And of the 7, Pujols will be in there. The other 6, there's reasons why they won't be. Pete Rose, Barry Bonds, Alex Rodriguez, Manny Ramirez, Gary Sheffield, all either connected to illegal gambling or steroids, and then Rusty Staub. I'm not sure what counts against him, but that is a damn impressive list of guys who are all should be in the Hall of Fame right alongside him. Everybody else who falls in the top 50 in reaching base, they all are in the Hall already.
Staub only hit 279 for his career. He was definitely more on base than he was like as good at the bat. He had a long career, but he was definitely more of a stat accumulator. But I want you to listen to the first 8 seasons. So this is 8 out of the 8.5 seasons that Bobby Abreu was in a Phillies uniform. I want to send an over or under on these numbers, and I want you to guess if he went over or under on these. So in 8 seasons, did he hit over or under 300 for the Phillies?
Over.
Over 305.
Yep. I happen to know that one already. But.
Over or under a 400 on base percentage?
Over.
415. Over or under a 500 slugging percentage?
Over.
519.
Woo!
Over
I'm on a
or
roll.
under, well, if the on base percentage and slugging are over 400, 500, your OPS is certainly over 900, and it was
That's right.
933. Wow. We're talking about 8 seasons of an OPS over 900.
That's nuts. And this is a guy who went undrafted, by the way. Like,
yeah. And it was traded for Kevin Stocker.
Traded for Kevin Stocker. They didn't get a whole lot back for him, though, the Phillies. They traded Abreu and Corey Lytle to the Yankees for C.J. Henry, Matt Smith, Jesus Sanchez, and Carlos Monasterios. Nobody who really excited anything. And I remember thinking, like, they had been close to the playoffs a couple years in a row there. That was like that 04, like the end of the Scott Rowland era, the end of the Placido Polanco era, the beginning of Utley and Rollins being called up. They had just missed that Billy Wagner was there during that time. They just missed the playoffs a couple years in a row. And then they traded Bobby Abreu. And I was like, oh no, they're giving up. And boom, they catch fire. Almost make the playoffs in 06, make it the next year, and then go on that nice little run that they did. So it's almost like getting the last guy of that era where I didn't know this well enough. I was a kid, but a lot of reporters and players who were in there, Bobby Abreu and Scott Rowland specifically, spoke about how that entire team kind of walked around like their crap didn't stink. And you got rid of that, and all of a sudden they went on the run. That being said, Abreu is still one of the best players. I mean, like, you went through the slash line already. He's the only player in AL/NL history to record at least 75 extra base hits, 100 RBIs, 125 walks, and 40 stolen bases in a single season. And this is how wild the early 2000s were. He finished 23rd in MVP voting that year. By the way, that's how insane the steroid era was. But he's had these moments where if you can pick and choose these things where he really does feel like it makes sense for him to be in the Hall of Fame, but while watching him, it never felt like that, if that makes sense. Yeah. Like when you look at the totality, and it's not a compiler because he didn't play till he was 45. It just kind of felt like he's a pretty good player. He's a pretty good player for a long time for a team that didn't have a lot of success. He didn't have a ton of postseason success, but he did go on to play in the postseason with LA and New York. But when I watched him, I was never like, man, Bobby Abreu is an all-time player. So that it's almost like the only case against him when you look at the numbers is, well, it didn't feel like it. So he shouldn't.
Yeah. You know who was a similar guy, in my opinion, that I do think he deserves more consideration to what he got? Michael Young.
Ooh, I liked Michael Young a lot.
Yeah, Michael Young, he even had less power than Bobby Abreu.
Yeah.
But like he hit 300 for his career. I just don't think he was like a great defensive shortstop. So he gets hit with those numbers against him war-wise. But I do think Michael Young was an excellent player.
So I don't think Abreu gets in. I think there is a legitimate case to be made, and as someone who grew up in Philly, as a Phillies fan, I'm going to defend it and say that he should be in, even though I don't think he makes it through the voting process.
No, I probably think he doesn't as well. But I do think if you look at the back of the baseball card, his numbers do kind of stand out. So it's very interesting to just look at the entirety for the case for Bobby Abreu.
All right, everybody. So we did touch on the big news. Bichette is to meet with the Phillies on Monday. A lot of reporters are assuming that he will stay in Philly. It's a Zoom meeting, with that he'll eventually come to Philadelphia. Obviously not guaranteed. We talked about what the dominoes might look like if that happens. We also touched on the hiring of Don Mattingly and what that does to the clubhouse. We touched on the Hall of Fame cases for former Philly greats. And as a favor to our boy Palmer Carpenter, we are going to touch real quick on the bullpen moves that the team has made. We covered it in an older episode, but we don't. This is a show for the people, by the people. So we want to make sure that we get to everything that you guys want us to talk about. The big movement. The Phillies signed Brad Keller, breakout setup man last year for the Cubs, to a 2-year deal at $11 million a season. So he is joining from the right side. They did trade away lefty Matt Strahm. In return, they got Kyle Backus was a different trade, right? They got Bolin back.
Bolin. Yeah,
right. They got Bolin in that move. Big sinker, big ground ball guy. Kyle Backus is a guy with a weird delivery. They brought in Zach Pop. So a few moves made behind the new closer and the returning Jose Alvarado, who they hope to have the entire season and the postseason this year. Alec, we haven't had you on to talk about these moves yet. So before we wrap up, give the people in the comments your thoughts on this revamped Phillies bullpen, and have they done enough for 2026?
Fun fact, he actually had me on the day all these moves happened.
Hi.
Yeah.
Oh,
this
man,
was the day Strahm was traded.
Sorry, I'm remembering Ben's part. Sorry, Alec. Been doing a lot of shows recently.
Don't worry about it. I just wanted to throw it in and be like, I have. I think the Brad Keller signing is excellent. I said it the last time I talked about it. I think this is a guy that has potential to be like one of the top 3 relievers in the next 3 years. I think his season with the Cubs last year was excellent. He added 3.4 miles an hour onto his fastball, and it did wonders for him. And that's a change that doesn't just disappear overnight. Very interested to see what he can do for the Phillies. They get more right-handed in return. Speaking of getting more right-handed, trading Strahm for Bolin. Bolin didn't have anything outstanding of a season, but he does have a very interesting sinker. I think he could definitely play a role for the Phillies, but of course he doesn't need to be anything more than, like, say, the 4th righty out of the bullpen for them. So I don't have any huge concern there. Basically, they get younger. They have him. He's controllable. It's something that they needed for the bullpen. It fills a role. Backus, an interesting, I think a submarine lefty there. He not great performance-wise, but does his ball move all over the place when it comes out of his arm from that arm slot. He's a guy with options, so he doesn't need to specifically make the major league roster with the Phillies. But he's an interesting lefty middle reliever kind of guy. Maybe they can mold him a little bit better, but he's definitely a funky guy with a funky delivery. See if that can do anything for them, or if it's just kind of we could use an extra lefty as depth and we need somebody to churn kind of move. But I do think they're actually in a way better off place than they were to start the 2025 season, that they're going to be in terms of their bullpen to start the 2026 season. Of course, that includes Johan Duran, who was acquired at the trade deadline. So I think this Phillies bullpen looks really solid. And again, I think the biggest thing here is if A, they get Bichette, because then the lineup is crazy, and B, what are we doing with starting pitching depth? Those are the 2 biggest question marks for the Phillies now. The bullpen seems very settled.
Yeah, I agree, Palmer. I love the moves. I think they still need to do something else for the team overall, but the bullpen is pretty set. You know, they have felt very thin right-handed up until the Duran trade last year, and whether you think it's a protection move or just getting quality pitching, it now bumps Orion Kirkring down the priority list a little bit when you have Keller back there. He's probably the 3rd righty instead of the 1st or 2nd out of the pen now, when you have Keller and Duran in front of him. The most impactful move is Keller, and obviously trading Strahm out, but I think they made enough other moves to make up for that. He's in the last year of his deal. You got some long-term value in Bolin there with 5 years of team control. Excuse me. He mentioned that he doesn't have any ill will towards the Cubs, despite them signing a bunch of relievers and not bringing him back in. But he said that what they did to help him with the changes that he's made as a full-time reliever, he can't thank them enough for that. He said that he was on foul territory either earlier this week or the end of last week, and he mentioned that the biggest thing for him last year was getting healthy. Promising note for Phillies fans, he was recovering from a surgery to correct thoracic outlet syndrome, which is what Zach Wheeler had surgery for last year. So he had a full normal off season. He felt like that was huge. overhauled some things just to have his stuff tick up out of the pen, excuse me. But here's the thing that I love the most. So one of the things I loved, and I was worried about them potentially losing when they traded away Strahm, was that dude is like a psycho out on the mound. Real fiery guy, loves to go to a different place up here. And you see him yelling at himself, cursing at himself, really high energy guy. So they asked him on Foul Territory at Brad Keller, what did you like better, starting or relieving? Because, somebody might be willing to let you start again since that's how you came up. And he said, look, I love starting. It's a very specific mindset. It's what I did my entire life. He's like, I really liked starting, but I loved coming out of that bullpen. He said, when that phone rings, the adrenaline spike that you get, even before they call your name or motion to you, knowing that you might be going in at the most important, the tightest part of the game, that's what he fell in love with. And to me, that should be the biggest thing that people are excited about when it comes to Keller. He also said Duran's entrance is so impressive, and he only thinks that closers should get entrances if anybody cares about that. So don't expect anybody to get a special entrance outside of Duran if Keller has anything to say with it. But hopefully he's good enough where people start asking that question anyway.
Yeah, no, this is a guy, all you have to do is pull up his baseball savant page, look at what StatCast says about him, and it is glowing red. I'm so excited for this guy, honestly. I think it's such a good get at 2 years, $11 million per.
Yeah, well, it's a solid move from a solid front office. We'll see what Monday brings. Make sure you're back here with us next Friday, 2 p.m. Alley Talk here on Philly Sports Network. We will definitely break down any news that comes from that meeting on Monday. Phillies could be looking a lot different next year. Or will we get some news on JT? Will it be JT?
It could be looking a lot different next Friday.
Right. So make sure you keep it locked right here on Philly Sports Network, whether it's X, whether it's Blue Sky, whether it's right here on YouTube, wherever you find us, make sure you stay tuned. And make sure you follow us because we have great writers who've been putting out great stuff all year long. Corey Naito and Sean Nestor really carrying us these last couple months. Alec, I think you have a piece or two in there since the offseason began. I've been absent personally because I'm doing a lot of other things right now, but I'll be back with that writing come spring training, and our staunch writers are holding down the fort in the meantime. So make sure you go give them a listen. I believe it was Sean Nestor who did the piece breaking down the case for Bichette coming in. So make sure you go follow them. If you follow Philly Sports Network on all your platforms, you will find us there as well. Anything else to plug on the way out, Alec?
I should be moving to Lancaster soon. So
pretty sweet. Lancaster people show up.
Yeah,
let them know where to
go. If anybody knows good places to go around Lancaster, I'll be living in the city. Feel free to message me on Twitter. I don't call it X. I don't like it. But yeah, feel free to send me a message about any recommendations. I love food. Love me some beer. I'll go about anywhere.
Well, let us know your recs for Lancaster people. And let us know how you're feeling in the comments. I check the comments all week long between this episode and next one. So make sure you hop in the comments. We love chatting with you guys. This show, yes, it is our show, but it is your show as much as it is ours. We are more than willing to change everything if we need to, based on what you, the fans, want to hear. So appreciate the love. Appreciate the support. We will be back next week on Friday, 2 p.m. Alley Talk. Right here on Philly Sports Network. Appreciate you guys. Appreciate all the love. And we love talking ball. Love you guys too. See you next week.